American in Moscow, Russia. And in this video, I'm going to give you my raw reaction of the second Oval Office meeting of Trump and Zelensky. This is just a couple of days after the Alaska summit. Could it be the conflict is going to soon come to an end? I have a unique perspective because, according to the West, I am basically behind enemy lines. And I want to share this with you and tell you what I think based on living in this country, because I'm getting different news than you, and I'm interacting with Russians on the street. Welcome to Expat American. I am the Expat American. Find out my American in Russia perspective of this situation right now. Guys, let's get started. So you got JD Vance next to Trump, back in his position from last time where he got in the argument with Zelensky, and Marco Rubio right next to him, right where he was, looking surprised last time. First clip is coming up.
Not too long.
No, very short. Very short.
In between us.
Okay, Zelensky's making a little joke here.
Well, thank you very much. It's an honor
got a connection with Trump
to have the president of Ukraine with us. We've had a lot of good discussions, a lot of good talks, and I think progress is being made, very substantial progress in many ways. We had a good meeting, as you know, just a short while ago with the president of Russia, and I think there's a possibility that something could come out of it, and today's meeting is very important. We have, I guess, the seven very powerful leaders from Europe, and we're going to be meeting with them right after this meeting, and thank you very much for being here.
Yeah, I think this is historic because Trump just met with Putin in Alaska, and they talked for 3 hours. So that's a long time. It sounds like, and this is private, their talk. So it sounds like a lot of negotiating and deal making behind the scenes, as Trump would like to say, was happening there. And now this meeting, for what I understand, based on the clips, is relatively short. So it doesn't look like a lot of decision making is happening. It looks like to me he is here for Trump to just tell him what's up. And it's interesting because I don't remember a time, and I'm 50, when so many European world leaders came to the Oval Office, came to the White House at one time. And it's not for nothing. It's not just a party. You know, this is a serious situation, a serious conflict, a military conflict, political conflict, economic conflict. And, you know, Trump has their attention, as we would say, sent to meeting with Putin. So let's see how this goes.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. If I can, first of all, thank you for invitation, and thank you very much for your efforts, personal efforts to stop killings and stop this war. Thank you. And using this opportunity, many thanks to your wife, First Lady of the United States. She sent a letter to Putin about our children, abducted children.
Now, he mentioned abducted children. It's my understanding that Ukraine has been saying since the start of this conflict that Russia has kidnapped children in the conflict. I believe that Russia has asked for names of the children, and Ukraine has not turned those over. If they have, they've turned over just like a few, whereas they're claiming thousands are missing.
Yes, Peter, go ahead.
Thank you, President Trump. So, President Zelensky, you say in a post on X today, Russia must end this war, which it itself started. President Trump, you say President Zelensky of Ukraine can end the war with Russia almost immediately if he wants to. Which is it?
Yeah, I think that's true. I think we're going to have.
That is Ducey of Fox News. I used to watch his father years ago on Fox News. I can recognize his voice. And that's a good question.
A meeting. I think if everything works out well today, we'll have a trilat. And I think there will be a reasonable chance of ending the war when we do that.
And, is this the end of the road for American support for Ukraine? Is today's meeting deal or no deal?
I can never say that. It's never the end of the road. People are being killed, and we want to stop that. So I would not say it's the end of the road. No, I think we have a good chance of doing it. It's been almost 4 years now that a lot of people were killed last week. A lot of people last week. I mean, millions of people killed, but a lot of people last week for whatever reason. A big number, a lot of soldiers, on both sides. And I know the president, I know myself, and I believe Vladimir Putin wants to see it ended.
And as you met with Putin on Friday, today you've got President Zelensky here. As you listen to Russia and Ukraine, which side has the better cards?
Well, I don't want to say that. I'm just here to be, look, this isn't my war. This is Joe Biden's war.
Yeah, I mean, Ducey's doing the right thing here. He's supposed to ask questions, and Trump doesn't want to say because he's trying to negotiate with both sides. I know that for a lot of you who know better, that can make you feel kind of sick because you know that the U.S. Leads NATO, and you believe, and I think you're right, that NATO has been encroaching on Russia for years. And so for Trump to try to position himself as the negotiator, the peacemaker, can be kind of frustrating. But I think that since we've been so close to potential nuclear problems, let's say, I want to be careful with the algorithm. I think that we should take what we can get. And it looks like things are moving forward. It may be an emotional compromise for a lot of us.
He's the one that had a lot to do with this happening, and we want to get it ended. And we want it to end good for everybody. We want it to end good. The people of Ukraine have suffered incredibly.
And to that point, President Zelensky, are you prepared to keep sending Ukrainian troops to their deaths for another couple years, or are you going to agree to redraw the maps?
Thank you for your question. So, first of all, we live under each day attacks. That today have been a lot of attacks and a lot of wounded people, and the child was dead, small one year and a half. So we need to stop this war, to stop Russia, and we need support American and European partners. And we will do our best for this. So, I think we show that we are strong people, and we supported the idea of the United States, personally of President Trump, to stop this war, to make a diplomatic way of finishing this war. And we are ready for trilateral, as President said. This is a good signal about trilateral. I think this is very good. Thank you.
Mr. President.
Zelensky seems calmer to me than last time. I hope that you saw the last White House meeting about 5 months ago, Oval Office meeting, where JD Vance, Trump's vice president, got in and they had a little argument, the three of them. It was definitely made for TV. Some of you don't like it. You feel like it was, embarrassing and beneath the office of the presidency. So far, this seems pretty calm, and I'm sure that they had lots of talks with Zelensky before going into this. Now, again, I want to remind you, some of you might be thinking, what is that American saying? He's crazy. It's not like that. I'm just giving you my perspective after being here for more than 3 years, which is going to be probably different than the average Westerner because I'm getting different news than you. I'm talking to different people at the grocery store than you are. So you should just not get upset with me, but just take it as this is what I say is what some people feel and think over here. And so use this to, educate yourself if you want on how the other side sees things.
Your team is talking about security guarantees. Could that involve U.S. troops? Would you roll that out in the future?
We'll let you know that maybe later today. We're meeting with 7 great leaders of great countries also, and we'll be talking about that. They'll all be involved, but there'll be a lot of help. When it comes to security, there's going to be a lot of help. It's going to be good. They are first line of defense because they're there. They're Europe. But we're going to help them out also. We'll be involved.
Vladimir Putin mentioned that the war will not end without addressing the root causes of this war. Have you had an understanding what are the root causes of this war?
Well, look, the war is going to end. When it ends, I can't tell you, but the war is going to end, and this gentleman wants it to end, and Vladimir.
That's a tricky question, and Russians talk about this all the time. She's asking Trump if he now understands, after meeting with Putin, what are the root causes. And I bet you he does, because he's been successful for a long time. And he just talked with Putin for 3 hours. And I would gather he does know the root causes now. But if he says that now in front of all the European leaders that are in the crowd or in the next room, they are not going to like that. So Trump is playing a very difficult game to try to make everyone happy, to get everyone to come to an agreement. Western media and NATO members, a lot of Europeans, they would, leaders, they would say that 3 years ago, February 2022, Russia just invaded, and that's that. It was unprovoked attack. They say that phrase over and over and over again. They say it so much that I would think anyone would be starting to doubt it at this point. What I have been seeing living here and studying the news and talking to people is that NATO has been pushing in on Russia from all sides for years and years and years. And I'll probably talk more about that later as we go through.
Putin wants it to end. I think the whole world is tired of it, and we're going to get it ended. It was, I've done 6 wars. I've ended 6 wars, and I thought this maybe would be the easiest one, and it's not the easiest one. It's a tough one. So the First Lady felt very strongly. She's watched the same thing that you watch and that I watch. I see things that you don't get to see, and it's horrible.
As the leader, he's going to have to see a lot of video footage of, I'm sure, terribly mangled, wounded, and deleted bodies. And it's something that you and I could choose not to see if we hear it's something awful. But as the leader, he's got to watch it.
President Zelensky, you look fabulous in that suit.
I said the same thing.
Yeah, you look good.
I said the same.
Okay, I recognize that voice. That's the guy who heckled him for not wearing a suit when he was in the Oval Office again about 5 months ago. If you have not seen that, you definitely have to watch it. It is very heated and interesting and exciting. This guy a little bit, and JD Vance mostly, and Trump some too. And I did a reaction video to it, so you can check it out on my channel. I'll link it below.
Yeah, looks good.
I said the one that attacked you last time. See, that was
I remember that.
I apologize to you. You look wonderful. No, my first question for you, President Zelensky.
In the same suit. You see, I changed. You are not.
Maybe yours is much better. Real quickly.
It's funny. Like I want to have a good sense of humor, but for some reason, when I see Zelensky making jokes, it bothers me. Like, I don't know why. Well, I do. I think I know why. Obviously, I'm living here. I have a different perspective. And I just feel like I don't want to see that guy laughing. I can't articulate it.
Upon peace, God willing we get peace, are you open to holding an election in your country?
Yes, of course. We are open for election, yes. We have to do safety circumstances. And a little bit, we need to work in the parliament, because during the war you can't have elections, but we can do security. We need, we need a truth. Yes, everywhere, the battlefield, in the sky, and the sea. Yeah, to make possible for people to do democratic, open, legal elections.
So you say
we are ready.
during the war you can't have elections. So let me just say 3.5 years from now. So you mean if we happen to be in a war with somebody, no more elections? Oh, that's good. I wonder what the fake
You like this idea?
Yeah.
No.
Speaking of news, I got a question for you. This sounds insane for me even to ask this, but do you think the American media really doesn't even want a peace deal because they've seen they've been so critical of you every step of the way as you lead the charge for peace?
It's an amazing phenomenon. I said that if in the settlement you got Moscow, St. Petersburg, and thousands of miles around them, they would say I made a bad deal. The level of hatred and animosity is incredible. Not with all. I mean, we have great people up here. We also have terrible people up there that I think are told what to say. But, in solving all of these wars, they don't even write about it. I solved major wars. I solved wars that have been going on for 31.
I was waiting for a break, but he's not going to stop. I thought Trump was about to give Zelensky a hard time for not holding elections, but instead he just made a joke about it. I personally don't like that.
No matter what I do, no matter what deal I make, from my standpoint, you'll come out good. Maybe President Putin will come out good. But they'll say Trump was absolutely horrible. It's just that, and I've lived with that for a long time. I've lived with it since just before the first election. I used to get great publicity. Now I get the worst publicity anyone's ever gotten in office, but I won in a landslide, so that people understand. They're the only ones that count, ultimately. But I've also had great reporters. I've had journalists that are very good. But it's very sad when you do the right thing. As an example, they said, because of the fact that Vladimir Putin came to American soil, this was a tremendous defeat for Donald Trump. No, it was really wonderful that he did it. It was a hard thing for him to do, to be honest with you. It was the opposite of what they said. But they said it. Now, if he didn't come, they'd say that was also bad for Trump. Yeah. I don't think you need a ceasefire. If you look at the 6 deals that I settled this year, they were all at war. I didn't do any ceasefires. And I know that it might be good to have, but I can also understand strategically why, one country or the other wouldn't want it. You have a ceasefire and they rebuild and rebuild and rebuild, and, maybe they don't want that. But if you look... Okay,
this is a good point. Because I know a lot of Westerners say, why isn't Russia willing to do a ceasefire? So I think 2015, a long, long time ago, Ukraine was trying to well, they were definitely giving Donbass a hard time. They were giving the Ukrainian government and military were treating badly the ethnic Russians, the Russian-speaking Russians in Ukraine. And I believe the Donbass militia was winning against the Ukrainian military. If I'm saying this incorrectly, please comment and help me out. I'm not a historian. And what happened was Angela Merkel, the Chancellor of Germany, ran to Moscow and said, "Putin, please, let's sign an agreement. Let's have peace here." And he said, "Okay," and he did, which is interesting because Ukraine was not in NATO, right? So that kind of supports the idea that NATO is constantly pushing in on Russia. So what would be, NATO Germany's interest in Ukraine if Ukraine's not in NATO, and so Putin had them stand down for something like that. Again, comment if I'm wrong. And then Germany and NATO and Ukraine, that was going to be in NATO, I believe at the time. They certainly won't be in NATO now. They turned around and just built up the military in Ukraine. And Angela Merkel has since admitted that what she did was only to buy time. It was just a trick to buy time to build up and prepare militarily against Russia. So Putin knows this. Moscow knows this. And I believe this is why they would never do a ceasefire, as long as they're winning, of course, right? And they're a much bigger country. So they have the resources to be on the winning side. So it may sound cruel, but I mean, put yourself in their shoes. If they were tricked into being put in a position where their country, their people, their villages are going to be in danger, why are they going to put themselves in that situation again?
I didn't do any ceasefires. Would I like the concept? I like the concept of a ceasefire for one reason, because you'd stop killing people immediately, as opposed to in 2 weeks or 1 week or whatever it takes. But we can work a deal where we're working on a peace deal while they're fighting. They have to fight. I wish they could stop. I'd like them to stop. But strategically, that could be a disadvantage for one side or the other. But all of these deals I made without even the mention of the words ceasefire.
Yeah, Ukraine, it looks like, is losing very, very badly. And I had Larry Johnson on my show a couple of days ago. You should watch that video. I'll link it. And he explained that, Trump had announced, Russia's got 50 days or they're going to have secondary sanctions. And then he announced Russia's got 12 days or 10 days. And then all of a sudden, Witkoff was being sent to Moscow. Actually, I was in a fancy hotel. I'm pretty sure I saw his caravan. That'll be in another video, though. So what it looks like, according to Larry Johnson, when I spoke to him a few days ago, the reason why the Alaska summit happened and the reason why Trump was moving up his timetable is because Ukraine is just collapsing very quickly. So again, if you're a liberal, if you're against Russia, if you're all Western and you don't know anything about Russia, you might think I'm crazy. Don't get mad at me and shut it off. You want to hear both sides. You want to know what the other side thinks.
Can you explain the decision to offer Ukraine Article 5-like security guarantees, but stop short of pushing for their full membership?
Yeah, well, we haven't done anything on that yet. If you look back and you go back long before President Putin, it was always a statement that they would never allow Ukraine into NATO. So that was a statement that was made, but we haven't discussed any of that yet. We're going to be discussing it today, but we will give them very good protection, very good security. That's part of it. And the people that are waiting for us, I think they're very like-minded. They want to help out also.
Thank you, President. Thank you, President Trump.
Are you disappointed there's no
The United States has already given hundreds of billions of dollars to this war effort in Ukraine.
Right.
At best, it is a stalemate, and the killing continues. So, President Trump, how much more is the United States willing to give Ukraine? And President Zelensky, how much more do you want?
Well, I'll start off just by saying we're not giving anything now. We're selling weapons. This is something before, I guess the number is well over $300 billion. That was under Joe Biden, a corrupt politician, not a smart man, never was. By the way, go back 40 years. He was not a smart man 40 years ago either. But now he's in particular bad. This was done by a corrupt administration that shouldn't have been in. And frankly, if the right results of the election were given, if I were president, this war would have never taken place. And he would have been very happy because he would have liked to have seen. I mean, they went through hell. He went through hell. This war would have never happened. And the people that were killed, a couple of million people, a lot of people with soldiers and everything else, And the people that have been displaced and forced into other areas and other countries because of what's happened, none of that would have happened. And I'm just saying that.
So he is blaming Biden. He's putting it on Biden. He's saying corrupt politician Joe Biden did this. He's responsible for this. So it's interesting. And he even interrupted Ducey to say Biden before Ducey finished the question. So Trump feels very strongly about this.
He was a horrible president, whether it was the borders or this. He was just a horrible, corrupt president. We sell the equipment to NATO. And NATO does what, I don't know what the arrangement is that you have with, but I know that they want you to have the equipment. And we're getting the best equipment in the world, but they pay us for the equipment. Under Biden, it was just crazy what was going on. I believe the number is over 300. I think it could be $350 billion worth of equipment and money and everything else. And
so again, he's putting it on Biden. He's saying, this equipment was being just given away by Biden. And he's calling Biden corrupt. So is Trump saying this entire military engagement on the NATO side, corruption?
What security guarantees do you need from President Trump to be able to make a deal? Is it American troops, intelligence, equipment? What is it?
Everything. And really, it includes two parts. First, strong Ukrainian army. That's what I began to discuss with your colleagues. And it's a lot about weapon and then people and training missions and intelligence. And second, we will discuss with our partners. It depends on the big countries, on the United States, on a lot of our friends.
And Mr. President, are you willing to commit American troops to that NATO-like?
So to make a deal, Zelensky says he needs a strong Ukrainian military from Trump, which is interesting because, again, Ukraine was a country that was part of the Soviet Union, led by Moscow, and now they want a military to be strong against their Soviet brothers, right? So it's very interesting. And I believe that Moscow is not going to want Ukraine to have a strong military. I believe Moscow is going to want Ukraine to just be a neutral country.
Protection in order to get President Zelensky to a deal today?
well, I don't know if you define it that way, but NATO-like, I mean, we have people waiting in another room right now. They're all here from Europe, biggest people in Europe, and they want to give protection. They feel very strongly about it, and we'll help them out with that. I think it's very important. I think it's very important to get the deal done.
You've been involved with the peacekeeping in Ukraine since your first day in the administration. What would you say to the Ukrainian people right now who are suffering under the Russian attacks and hoping that the American people will stand with them?
Well, I know Ukrainian people. I've known many over the years. They're great people. They're smart. They're energetic. They love their country. I mean, they love their country, and we want to get this war ended. That's all I can do. I love the Ukrainian people, but I love all people. I love the Russian people. I love them all. I want to get the war stopped. Very important.
Mr. President, was there any aspect of your discussion?
It's very interesting because when he was running for president, especially, I think before and after he got pierced through the ear, he would always say when he was asked about Russia or Ukraine, I just want the dying to stop.
I just spoke to President Putin indirectly, and we're going to have a phone call right after these meetings today. And we may or may not have a trilat. If we don't have a trilat, then the fighting continues. And if we do, we have a good chance. I think if we have a trilat, there's a good chance of maybe ending it. But he's expecting my call when we're finished with this meeting. Thank you very much.
Trump is sounding more like he is ready to walk. This is the next meeting that happened a few minutes later. And these are all the European leaders that have come. It's amazing how quickly they gathered and came with Zelensky after Trump decided to meet with Putin in Alaska. Kind of shows you who's in charge.
We're all working for the same goal, very simple goal. We want to stop the killing, get this settled. I've just had the honor of being with President Zelensky and all of the discussions that we've had. We've covered a lot of territory. And I've spoken directly with President Putin today. We're going to call President Putin right after this meeting. Collectively, we can reach an agreement that would deter any future aggression against Ukraine. And I actually think there won't be. I think that's even overrated, largely overrated, but we're going to find out.
It's very odd as an American to be living in a country with military action on the border, because I never thought it'd be so close to it. And my wife and I actually went down there as close as we could, and we saw the missiles flying over our heads. You can read about it in the news, but to actually see it and be there, it makes it become, more real for you emotionally, if that makes sense.
The meeting, maybe as soon as we can, and I have a feeling you and President Putin are going to work something out. Ultimately, this is a decision that can only be made by President Zelensky and by the people of Ukraine working also together in agreement with President Putin. And I just think that's very good things are going to come of it. So I hope we have a good meeting. And if we can have a good meeting, I'll set up a meeting with President Putin. And if you'd like, I'll go to that meeting. And not that I want to do that, but I will do.
Okay. Again, Trump is positioning himself as someone who is stepping out of the whole situation, it looks like, which I think is good news. If Europe, through Ukraine, behind Ukraine, wants to have an issue with Russia, and then let them have their issue, let them work it out. It's interesting. I'm thinking now, what was the previous meeting we were just at with just Zelensky? I mean, they just answered some reporter questions. So again, no negotiating or decision-making seems to be happening here. It seems to be Trump called them all, and here they come, and he's telling them what's up. Interesting.
That because we want to save a lot of people from dying. A lot of people are dying, and we got to save them. We got to save it. 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 people sometimes a week. All of us would obviously prefer an immediate ceasefire while we work on a lasting peace, and maybe something like that could happen. As of this moment, it's not happening, but President Zelensky and President Putin can talk a little bit more about that. In the 6 or so wars that we stopped, we haven't had a ceasefire. And so I don't know that it's necessary. You can do it through the war, but it would be, I like the ceasefire from another standpoint. You immediately stop the killing. But I believe a peace agreement at the end of all of this is something that's very attainable, and it can be done in the near future.
Okay, so it looks like he's trying to make the point to the European leaders that ceasefire is not going to happen because he's just met with Putin, and you probably educated him on everything, on the root causes, on what happened with Angela Merkel. And Trump knows that Putin is just not going to do a ceasefire.
With all of the wars that I got involved in, we only have this one left. Of course, as I walk out the door, there'll probably be a new one starting, and I'll get that stopped too. But I thought this was going to be one of the easier ones. It's actually one of the most difficult. They're very complex. The next step would be for a trilateral meeting, and that will be worked out. And I just look forward to working and having a great result. We're going to spend a lot of time today talking about, and we're really honored you guys came over. I mean, these are the heads of major countries.
We spoke about very sensitive points. The first one is security guarantees, and we are very happy with President that all the leaders are here, and the security in Ukraine depends on the United States and on you and on those leaders who are with us in our hearts. They have been online before yesterday, and etc. So a lot of countries on the side of Ukraine, our people, and all of us want to finish this war, stop Russia and stop this war. We spoke about it, and we will speak more about security guarantees. This is very important that the United States gives such strong signal and is ready for security guarantees.
And if you think I'm talking too carefully here, I'll say this now. I am talking carefully because I want people who don't agree with me and people who don't have the information yet to not be scared away. I want you to hear it, and I want you to think. I don't need to say it forcefully for the people who agree with me. I don't need to make videos for people who agree with me. They already agree with me. But I want to do whatever I can to help educate people who don't know. I'm not saying I'm necessarily right, but to hear this perspective, to hear this side of the world, and perhaps change some hearts and minds.
Mark, as head of NATO, maybe you could say a few words, please.
Yes, I will be very brief. I really want to thank you, President of the United States, dear Donald, for the fact that you, as I said before, broke the deadlock with President Putin by starting that dialogue. And I think it was in February that you had the first phone call. And from there, we are now where we are today. And that is, I think, if we play this well, we could end this. And we have to end this. We have to stop the killing. We have to stop the destruction of Ukraine's infrastructure. It is a terrible war. So I'm really excited. And let's make the best out of today and make sure that from today onwards, we get this thing to an end as soon as possible. I really want to thank you for your leadership, what you are doing for Volodymyr, but of course also all the European colleagues. It is really crucial. And the fact that you have said, I'm willing to participate in the security guarantees is a big step. It's really a breakthrough, and it makes all the difference. So also thank you for that.
Well, NATO also.
It's interesting, he's saying they want the war to stop, they want the war to stop, they want the, But it's my understanding is that Europe is like broke. They're having a very hard time. And that these countries are profiting off of the war. If you need this conflict to continue because you need to pay your people and you need to keep your country in business and you want to make money, then the ceasefire is a great idea because the firing will stop for a couple of months and you'll build up your military and then you can find a reason to start the fighting again. If you don't get a ceasefire, then, you know, maybe in a few months, Russia completely wins. And then the conflict is over and you can't not make money off the military. You know, if you actually achieve peace, if you take care of the root causes and end the conflict for the long term, then you also can't make money. So if these people are in the wrong, or if they're desperate, then this is why they really, really, really want a ceasefire and talk about it all the time.
We had a fantastic NATO summit. Together as the two largest and biggest economies in the world, we had the largest trade deal ever agreed. And now we are here to work together with you on a just and lasting peace for Ukraine. Stop the killing. This is really our common interest, stop the killing. And indeed, it's very good to hear that we're working on the security guarantees, Article 5 lies security guarantees, so important. But I want to thank you also that you mentioned the thousands of Ukrainian children that have been abducted. And as a mother and grandmother, every single child has to go back to its family. This should be one of our main priorities also in these negotiations, to make sure that the children come back to Ukraine, to their families.
Okay, so what are the names of the children?
I was just thinking we're here for a different reason, but we just a couple of weeks ago made the largest trade deal in history. So that's a big thing, and congratulations. That's great. Thank you very much, Ursula. Mr. Chancellor from Germany, a very...
And Ursula, the woman who just spoke there, head of the EU, from what I understand, she is officially under investigation. And I have to be careful because of the algorithm, for things in relation to the pandemic times. And she's, I think, been making statements like she would be happy living in America. So, you know, I don't know, maybe if she's not going to get out of this and she's going to be in serious trouble, maybe she's going to try to go to America instead. I don't know. It looks like he's talking to the head of Germany now, Merz.
Very great leader.
Mr. President, dear Donald, many thanks for having us today. To be honest, we all would like to see a ceasefire, the latest from the next meeting on. I can't imagine that the next meeting would take place without a ceasefire. So let's work on that, and let's try to put pressure on Russia, because the credibility of these efforts we are undertaking today are depending on at least a ceasefire from the beginning of the series.
End the entire conflict?
Next step on. So I would like to emphasize this.
Why
aspect.
just a ceasefire?
Would like to see a ceasefire from the next meeting, which should be a trilateral meeting wherever it takes place.
Well, we're going to let the president go over and talk to the president, and we'll see how that.
And why would they talk about a ceasefire more than they would talk about peace?
In the 6 wars that I've settled, I haven't had a ceasefire. We just got into negotiations, and one of the wars was, as you know, in the Congo was 31 years long. Another one that we settled last week with 2 great countries was 35 years going on, and we had no ceasefire. So if we can do the ceasefire, great. And if we don't do a ceasefire, because many other points were given to us, many points were given to us, great points. Please, Georgia, go ahead.
Is Trump not playing ball? Is he breaking with the globalists here? Should I be hopeful?
We are on the side of Ukraine, and we do absolutely support your efforts towards peace. We will talk about many important topics. The first one is security guarantees, how to be sure that it won't happen again, which is a precondition of every kind of peace. I'm happy that we will discuss about that. I'm happy that we will begin from a proposal, which is the, let's say, Article 5 model, which was Italian at the beginning. So we are always ready to bring our proposals for peace, for dialogue. It's something we have to build together.
Article 5 means if one NATO country is attacked, all the other NATO countries have to join them and support them in the attack.
Everybody around this table is in favor of peace. And we work very hard, and we've worked very hard during the past few years to have a peace which is a robust and long-standing peace. This is why the idea of a trilateral meeting is very important, because this is the only way to fix it. And by the way, I think as a follow-up, we will need probably a quadrilateral meeting, because when we speak about security guarantees, we speak about the whole security of the European continent. And this is why we are all united here with Ukraine on this matter. In order to organize such a trilateral meeting, your idea to ask for a truce or a ceasefire, at least to stop the killings, as we discussed, is a necessity. And
Okay, so he said peace, and I was thinking, oh wow, he got the memo. And he said that like twice, and now he's straight into, but we need a ceasefire. Ceasefire, ceasefire, ceasefire.
And in order to have such a long-standing peace for Ukraine and for the whole continent, we do need the security guarantees. And the first one is clearly a credible Ukrainian army for the years and decades to come.
Okay, security guarantees. So what they're saying is they want to support a Ukrainian military, I believe. So all of the NATO countries were supporting a Ukrainian military. Would that be much different from having a ceasefire and having all of the NATO countries build back up the Ukrainian military? So you see the problem here.
And the second one is our own commitments, all of us. And we worked very hard during the past few months amongst the coalition of the willings, with the support of NATO, to build the different pillars of security guarantees and our commitments. And you can be sure that the Europeans are very lucid about the fact that they have their fair share in these security guarantees for Ukraine, but their own security is clearly at stake in this situation. So you can count on us, as we can count on you, in order to deliver this robust peace for both Ukraine and Europe.
Thank you very much, Emmanuel. Mr. Prime Minister.
But not Russia?
Thank you very much, Mr. President, and thank you for hosting us here. With the right approach this afternoon, make real progress, particularly on the security guarantees, and your indication of security guarantees of some sort of Article 5 style guarantees fits with what we've been doing with the coalition of the willing.
Okay, so an Article 5 style security guarantee. So what they're saying is, okay, we know that Russia doesn't want Ukraine in NATO, but maybe we could have something like Article 5, where they're not in NATO, but if they get attacked, that would initiate Article 5, and we would all be required to help them, which, you know, is the same as being in NATO as far as I can tell. And I've also heard that, you know, Zelensky has lots of bank accounts outside of Ukraine, that he is profiting off of this big time. So, you know, again, do your own homework, you know. But if it is true that all these European leaders and Zelensky are profiting off of this combat, and just getting wealthy, while regular families and middle income and low income families of Ukraine, people's children who are, you know, very recently boys passing away, that is very sick, very evil, if that is what is happening, you know. And again, I think you need to do your research. I did a live stream just a couple days ago on this channel with a British man who lives in Moscow, who has been an advisor to multiple UK prime ministers, and with a Russian who served the US military and is now living in Moscow, and another British man. And we talked at length about this upcoming day and about how the Alaska summit went. And I also have a video before that one with Larry Johnson, where he gave his predictions on how this week was going to unfold. So you can be sure and check out those videos as well.
We're around this table today is very much symbolic in the sense that it's Team Europe and Team United States helping Ukraine. And the progress that we're looking out of this meeting is about the security guarantees.
I've known him for a long time. I've always had a great relationship with him. I think that President Putin wants to find an answer too. And we'll see. And in a certain period of time, not very far from now, a week or 2 weeks, we're going to know whether or not we're going to solve this, or is this horrible fighting going to continue. We'll do our best to get it ended. And I believe you have two willing parties, and usually that's good news, but two willing parties that want to make a deal. And we'll journey together, and we'll go over and we'll see if it can be done. And it's possible it might not be able to be done. On the other hand, it's possible it will. It will save thousands and thousands of lives a week.
Now it is your turn. I want to see comments from you. I want to know what you think. Feel free to tell me if I'm crazy. I'm really grateful that I had this opportunity to be able to watch it for the first time on camera, for you to see my raw reaction and give my feedback as an American living in Moscow during the entirety of the special military operation. And if this is your first time here, I do videos like this. I also do family style videos. Seeing Russia and showing the West, showing the English-speaking world, showing the world what Russia is really like. So that people know that it's not just a news story. This is a real place with people and families and cars and buildings and post offices and grocery stores and everything that you have. People who are happy and people who are sad. And I'm going to leave you now with a montage of some of the adventures we've been having here so you can get a better idea of what Russia is in case you don't know.
It looks like a palace of some sort. Oh, that guy's got an impressive date.